given the numbers, she's crashed it. Liz Truss was hounded out of office for doing that, and frankly, she didn't do such a bad job in comparison to Rachel, did she? But how much longer can we have that? I mean, if we have 6 further months of bad news, I'm assuming at that point somebody will say, look, this just isn't working.
Remember when Rachel Reeves promised economic growth? Fast forward to today, and UK businesses are pointing fingers at her for the economic downturn. What went wrong? In this video, we'll uncover the stark contrast between Reeves's confident pledges and the harsh reality facing British companies. Brace yourself for a shocking revelation about Labour's economic strategy and its unexpected consequences. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favour. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now, back to the video. Rachel Reeves stood at the podium brimming with confidence as she laid out her vision for the UK's economic future. Her promises were bold and ambitious: create thousands of new jobs, attract billions in foreign investment, and boost GDP growth to levels not seen in years. Reeves painted a picture of a thriving Britain, ready to compete on the global stage and deliver prosperity to every corner of the nation. Initially, her words resonated with many. Business leaders nodded in approval, and economic experts cautiously praised her approach. The CBI's Director General called it a refreshing vision that could reinvigorate British industry. Even some Conservative MPs grudgingly admitted that Reeves seemed to have a solid grasp on economic realities. But not everyone was convinced. Scepticism lurked beneath the surface, particularly from opposition benches and a handful of industry insiders. One anonymous CEO of a FTSE 100 company whispered to colleagues, "It all sounds great on paper, but can Labour really deliver?" These doubts, however, were largely drowned out by the wave of optimism surrounding Reeves's appointment.
And very much be more a message of looking to the future and hope and change in the future, because right now things are really not looking good for the UK economy and the UK PLC.
As Labour began implementing its economic strategy, the markets responded positively. The FTSE 100 saw a modest uptick, and the pound strengthened against major currencies. Foreign investors, intrigued by Labour's pro-business rhetoric, started to take a closer look at UK opportunities. For a brief moment, it seemed Reeves might just pull off her ambitious plan. But the honeymoon period was short-lived. As the first quarter's economic data rolled in, cracks began to appear in Labour's economic narrative. Growth figures fell short of projections, and job creation numbers were disappointingly flat. The promised flood of foreign investment turned out to be more of a trickle. Business leaders, initially supportive, started to voice their concerns more openly. At a London Chamber of Commerce meeting, the mood was tense. One manufacturing executive bluntly stated, "We were promised a revolution, but so far we've seen little more than reshuffling of the same old policies." As pressure mounted, Reeves and her team scrambled to explain the underwhelming results. They pointed to global economic headwinds and lingering effects of previous administrations' policies.
Labour have come up with this response to it. I suppose they're hoping that we're all going to sort of bury this.
But their explanations rang hollow to many, especially as other countries seemed to be faring better in similar conditions. The promise of prosperity was quickly giving way to a harsh reality check. Business confidence, once buoyed by Reeves's optimism, began to waver. The question on everyone's mind: had Labour's economic strategy been built on sand? Remember when Labour promised economic sunshine and rainbows? Well, the forecast has taken a gloomy turn. As the latest economic reports rolled in, they painted a picture that even the most pessimistic analysts hadn't anticipated. Key sectors like manufacturing and services showed not just stagnation, but worrying decline. The numbers were a far cry from Reeves's bold predictions of prosperity. But what's really got business leaders fuming? It's Labour's policies. The increased corporation tax, tighter regulations on foreign investment, and new environmental standards have become major sticking points. At a recent industry summit, the frustration was palpable. One CEO of a major retail chain didn't mince words. "We're not just treading water anymore, we're sinking."
we're going to have a premium stability premium, and actually it turns out it doesn't look so much as stability as more like stagnation.
And Labour's policies are the anchor dragging us down. The contrast between Reeves's initial promises and the current reality is stark. Remember those projections of thousands of new jobs and billions in foreign investment? They now seem like a distant dream. Instead, unemployment has ticked up, and foreign investors are giving the UK a wide berth. It's a far cry from the economic renaissance Labour had envisioned. Internationally, the picture isn't any prettier. While countries like Germany and France are showing signs of recovery, the UK is lagging behind. Economic experts are warning that this prolonged stagnation could seriously damage Britain's competitiveness on the global stage.
In terms of how they've handled the last 100 days, could do better. I mean, they won an impressive outcome in terms of the general election.
It's not just a temporary setback. It's a trend that could have long-lasting consequences. Take the case of Britannia Tech, a once promising startup in Manchester. They were poised for rapid expansion, with plans to hire 100 new employees this year. Now, they're struggling to keep their doors open. The founder, Sarah Thompson, explained, Labour's policies have created an environment where growth feels impossible. We're spending more time navigating red tape than innovating.
Economic bad news in an overdose of turkey, Christmas pudding and festive cheer.
Labour isn't taking this criticism lying down. They've been quick to defend their policies, arguing that they inherited a difficult economic situation and that their approach will pay off in the long run. But their explanations are falling on increasingly deaf ears. As one economic commentator put it, at some point, you have to stop blaming the past and take responsibility for the present.
Some of those things. So the state of Britain's stalling economy is disappointing, according to a Labour cabinet minister.
The pressure on Rachel Reeves is mounting by the day. Calls for policy changes are growing louder, with industry leaders demanding a complete reassessment of Labour's economic strategy. The question now is, how long can Reeves hold the line before something has to give? As Reeves struggles to hold the line, a ghost from Labour's recent past has come back to haunt them. Critics are drawing an uncomfortable parallel, one that's sending shivers down the spines of party leaders. Is Rachel Reeves becoming the new Liz Truss? The comparison between Rachel Reeves and Liz Truss has set tongues wagging in political circles.
Given the numbers, she's crashed it. Liz Truss was hounded out of office for doing that, and frankly, she didn't do such a bad job in comparison to Rachel, did she?
Both women promised economic growth and prosperity, only to face harsh realities that seem to contradict their rosy predictions. But while there are surface-level similarities, the devil's in the details. Reeves's situation is characterised by a slow burn rather than a rapid flame-out. Unlike Truss, who saw the economy tank almost overnight, Reeves is grappling with a prolonged period of stagnation. It's less of a sudden crash and more of a gradual descent into economic mediocrity. This difference has some experts questioning whether the Truss comparison is entirely fair. One economic analyst put it bluntly, Liz Truss was hounded out of office for her economic decisions, but Reeves is facing a different beast altogether. It's like comparing a sudden heart attack to a slow-developing chronic condition. Both are serious, but they require different approaches. Still, the parallels are hard to ignore. Both Reeves and Truss made bold promises about attracting investment and boosting growth. Both faced criticism from business leaders for policies seen as hindering rather than helping the economy. And both have seen their credibility take a hit as economic indicators fail to match their optimistic projections. Labour's reaction to these comparisons has been predictably defensive. They're working overtime to distance Reeves from the Truss legacy, arguing that the circumstances are entirely different. But their protestations are starting to sound hollow as the economic woes drag on. The public perception of Labour's economic competence is taking a beating.
But how much longer can we have that? I mean, if we have 6 further months of bad news, I'm assuming at that point somebody will say, look, this just isn't working.
Polls show support for the party, dropping to levels not seen since Jeremy Corbyn's lowest points. It's a stark reminder of how quickly political fortunes can change when the economy sours. Within the Labour Party, discontent is growing. Whispers of dissatisfaction are turning into more open grumbling. Some MPs are privately questioning whether Reeves is the right person to lead the economic charge. If things don't improve within the next year, we might see those whispers turn into calls for a leadership challenge. As the pressure mounts, one thing is clear. Rachel Reeves is facing the fight of her political life. Can she turn things around and shake off the Truss comparisons? Or will she become another cautionary tale in British politics? While Reeves grapples with Truss comparisons, a new front in her economic war is opening up. Business leaders are taking aim, and their ammunition isn't just words. It's cold, hard investment decisions. How bad is the damage, and can Labour's economic strategy survive this onslaught? The gloves came off at the recent UK Business Summit, where industry titans didn't hold back their frustration with Labour's economic policies.
Either within their party or indeed the nation. I mean, we've already seen the polls which have seen, 19 points taken off Labour's popularity.
CEOs and entrepreneurs, once hopeful about Reeves's vision, now openly criticise her approach. The head of a major manufacturing firm didn't mince words. We were promised growth, but all we've seen is stagnation. Labour's policies are strangling our ability to compete globally. Now, it's not just talk, companies are voting with their wallets, and the results are alarming for Labour. Tech giant Innovate UK, which had plans for a $500 million expansion in Manchester, has now put those plans on ice. Their CEO cited Labour's increased corporation tax and tighter regulations as deal breakers. This isn't an isolated case. Similar stories are emerging across various sectors, from finance to green energy.
Leading business groups said the country's fiscal outlook was headed for the worst of all worlds, and that's from the CBI.
The impact on Labour's credibility is devastating. Public support is eroding fast, with recent polls showing a 10-point drop in Labour's approval ratings on economic management. The party that promised to be the champion of business now finds itself cast as its nemesis.
The defining characteristic of this one-trick phony Prime Minister who says one thing and does another.
Reeves isn't taking this lying down. She's been on a media blitz, defending Labour's policies as necessary for long-term economic stability. We're making tough decisions now for a more prosperous future, she insists. But her words seem to be falling on deaf ears. Business leaders are demanding action, not explanations. Calls for a policy U-turn are growing louder by the day. The CBI, once cautiously optimistic about Labour's plans, is now pushing for a complete overhaul of the economic strategy. They're not alone.
For the government, not least, of course, because growth was supposedly the number one mission of Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer, and if they're not getting that by the end of next year...
A coalition of small business owners has launched a campaign titled Rethink and Revive, demanding immediate policy changes. The numbers paint a grim picture. Foreign direct investment has plummeted by 30% in the last quarter, a stark contrast to Reeves' promises of an investment boom. Business confidence indicators are at their lowest point in 5 years.
It now turns out that Keir Starmer is the least popular leader after 100 days.
With many companies reporting a pessimistic outlook for the next 12 months. Behind closed doors, Labour is in turmoil. Sources within the party reveal heated debates about the economic strategy. Some MPs are pushing for a softer approach to taxation and regulation, while others argue that backing down now would be political suicide. The party finds itself in a catch-22.
There's more bad news for UK Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer. In the same week, an Ipsos poll found more than 50% of people feel disappointed.
Stick to the plan and risk further economic decline, or change course and admit failure. As pressure mounts, Reeves and the Labour leadership face a crisis of confidence. The economic promises that were meant to be their ticket to long-term power now threaten to become their political epitaph. The question on everyone's lips, can Labour turn this ship around, or are we witnessing the beginning of the end for Reeves's economic vision?